Good morning, everyone. My name is John Sway. Welcome. I'm the hearing officer for today's San Francisco Public Works hearing. I work for San Francisco Public Works, and I'm joined by Clinton Otwell, who is the clerk of today's hearing. This hearing is being recorded, as Clinton mentioned, and will be available afterward through a link on our Public Works website YouTube channel. If you'd like to receive information about the results of this hearing, please send a message to the email address contact listed on the agenda for the item being heard today. Today's hearing will consider one item. This is hearing order 207578 to consider an appeal of a revocation for permit 20TC-01623 curbside pandemic shared space permit at 1499 Valencia Street, Hell's Place. The hearing will proceed as follows. I will ask the Public Works staff to speak first, then the project sponsor, followed by any public comment. Speaker comments are limited to 3 minutes. If you're a member of the public who would like to speak, you can use the raise your hand feature on Zoom. And if you're dialing on the phone, you can dial *9 to let us know your hand is raised. After all comments are completed, I will close the item and we can now begin the hearing. So the first item is called to order. Second item, I believe, is general public comment. So this is time for any public comment not related to any of the specific items on the agenda for today. Do we have any general public comment?
I did see one hand up, John. I've got Maureen, Bob Engel, and let's see who we have. Another Jacqueline Keywood and Victoria Slacker. So I'm hoping Maureen, I've asked, go ahead and speak if you'd like.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm speaking in support of the Cabañas at Al's Place. I'm a customer.
I just want to be clear that this is just for general public comment, so not related to the Al's Place item.
Sorry, got that wrong. Okay.
So that's
right.
Okay. We'll get to you in a moment.
Catch me later then.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the queue who had comment just for general public comment, not for the Al's Place item? See, Bob may still have the hand raised.
Go ahead, Bob. Bob Engel. If not, we'll go ahead and,
I also have a comment regarding Al's Place, not a general comment.
Okay.
Okay, well, if we have no general public comment, we can move on to the first order. So as we said, this is hearing order 207578 to consider the appeal revocation for permit number 20TC-01623 for 1499 Valencia Street. I will now invite Gregory from Public Works staff to present on this item.
Hello, good morning. Give me one moment here to pull up some slides. Okay, here. Can everyone see my slides all right here?
No,
I don't see them.
No, John.
Okay, give me one moment. Can you see these slides?
You're good, Greg.
Cool. All right, my name is Gregory Slocum. I am the commercial permit manager, and I am here representing the Bureau of Street Use and Management for Public Works. Our team has been responsible for the issuance of all curbside, aka parklet permits for the Shared Spaces program. Just some very brief background. The subject permit for today's hearing was issued pursuant to our pandemic program, which preceded the legislation that allows these permits to exist on an annualized or permanent basis. These permits were issued beginning in May of 2020 approximately, and they were issued without site plan review. There was some self-certification. We pushed them out quickly during COVID. These permits are non-transferable, which is to say that if one business moved out, we would not just transfer it turnkey to another, and that's for a variety of reasons. All of them are currently scheduled to expire on March 31st of this year. So just some additional background. For curbside shared spaces, also known as parklets, we review these in tandem with SFMTA. So what happens is a business will submit a request through the online portal. They'll request a certain amount of linear feet along the curb. MTA has a curb management strategy, which is to say they have formulas that dictate how much loading zones need to occupy curb, how many metered spaces may occupy, blue zones, etc. They also dictate sight lines for curb management that are imperative for vision and safety for pedestrians. So once the MTA tells us what the request is for linear feet, so the average parking space is about 20 feet to give some sense of scope. And for the legislated program, typically they're going to cap occupancy at 2 parking spaces. I think that they might give an additional space if someone had like basically frontage that was almost an entire block and they were the sole occupier therein, but just worth noting. So to date, we have had to revoke approximately 6 permits due to abandonment, non-use, or site conditions. The reason that these prior revocations did not go to hearing is because the permittees, upon the directive to remove the structure, complied, or the site basically was remediated. Now I'd like to present some context and a timeline specific to Al's Place over on Valencia. In late July of 2022, the SFMTA indicated to Public Works staff that the property owner had questions about the legislated or permanent occupancy of a shared space at this location, and indicated that they would not be supportive of a permanent or legislated occupancy. And at that point in time, this permit was still, the business is open, operating. There's a term of permit that it's not violating, i.e. the expiration date. So Public Works didn't really have any engagement, but we did save that correspondence. In late August, SFMTA contacted the Public Works team, and they indicated to us that Al's Place was closing. And typically when we are aware of a restaurant closing, we'll reach out to that business almost immediately as soon as we're able to, so that we can remind them of their need to remove this structure. Because what we found is that when they're not removed and that they're left in front of a business that's not utilizing them, they can become blight. So the next day after MTA requested we sent this letter, we reached out to the permittee and availed them of the need to remove the parklet pursuant to the restaurant closure. And the business indicated that they felt there was utility in the parklet and they would not be removing it. So one thing I did at that point was I conferred with the MTA team and some of our other agencies about the current site conditions. And I basically was trying to ascertain, in the summer of 2023, would this parklet as it stands before us be street legal? Is there any rationale for keeping it, or could someone else utilize it? The MTA asserted the need to restrict the envelope of the site for daylighting. As you'll know, I'm going to show some photos of the site here shortly, but it comes pretty close to the intersection, and they requested a 23-foot setback for the legislated program for that intersection. So as you'll see in the photos, that would essentially remove the structure closest to the intersection. Concurrent to that, the fire department did a review, and they indicated that there's no 3-foot gaps that are continuous within the structure as it is, and therefore constitute a safety issue. This is, there's residential units on the second floor and above Al's Place, and if there's no 3-foot gap, the fire department has a challenge in laddering that building. So if there was ever a fire, they would have a challenge in rescuing tenants therein. So after conducting that review for kind of longer term viability for the site, Public Works reiterated the need to remove this structure. It's kind of twofold. One, the business isn't operating. If the business isn't operating, the parklet's not being used. So been a rule for our prior to COVID program that these be removed with the business closes. We don't allow them to just sit there kind of vacantly or unused for a variety of reasons. And the permittee indicated that they would not remove. In early September, SFMTA actually reached out to the district supervisor to gauge their interest in kind of mediating any discourse, because we had complaints from the neighbors, but obviously, and the landlord, but obviously the business was not happy about the directive to remove. And we did not get a response on that. So since the business closed in August, we've received at least 7 complaints related to litter and non-operation. I say at least 7 because the way these are parsed, I'm referencing 311 complaints, but we could get them directly. They can come through different channels. So it could be slightly more than this. And also some complaints, the way they're filed by 311, can get segmented, meaning there's a fire issue on site in addition to non-use in addition, and they show up as different complaints. So we sought to represent that as accurately as possible here. So on November 22nd, pursuant to complaints that the Public Works team received regarding site conditions, we went and conducted an inspection, and corroborated that it was in fact not being used and was not being maintained. We issued a 14-day notice to remove the structure. The 14 days we're set to elapse on December 6th, but we didn't conduct a follow-up inspection until the 16th. On the 16th, we had a night noise inspector out, and we requested that they go by on a Friday evening where the likelihood of it being utilized might be greater, or that site conditions, it's a dinner service hour. We were hoping that we would find something right therein. The site conditions had not changed in accordance with the directive we had previously issued. I corroborated with fire that this structure would represent a safety issue as is. And then we we revoked the permit due to non-compliance thereafter. So one thing I'd like to emphasize in putting this out, Public Works is the permitting body for this. We issue all of these permits. However, it's a team effort. And before we engaged revocation in this instance, we engaged other shareholders like the planning department, the board of supervisors, the fire department, and SFMTA. So it's not a decision that we made unilaterally without input from other shareholders or feedback related to the structure. And then this is a site visit photo from November 22nd, when we issued the initial directive to remove. Like I mentioned before, there's going to be restrictions on the amount of space MTA will allow these to occupy, and it would be smaller than this. And as you can see, this goes close up to the intersection. It's going to be required to have 23 feet of daylighting. There's 2 or 3 things that jump out immediately as site conditions here. There's no continual eye line from the street to the structure. There's some spray paint or some opaque paneling there that prevents that. That's going to be a challenge for SF Fire if they have to conduct any type of rescue in that building. It also is considered detrimental to public safety in so much as that there's not clear and defined timelines from the roadway or sight lines from the roadway to the pedestrian. Cars can't see pedestrians, vice versa. We have had some complaints related to lighting and safety as a result of that. You'll also notice that there are some scissor gates that segment this structure. Fire has confirmed that these scissor gates do not constitute a 3-foot gap. You'll notice that they're framed in and that a ladder could not be placed within that gap, or a first responder would not be able to access that gap. So in addition to having the scissor gates that outright obstruct it, if you remove those scissor gates, it's still not structurally compliant. And then these are just some additional site photos for that visit. Basically, it was being used as a storage unit to the best of our ability to discern there. And then, as I mentioned, we did a follow-up visit on a Friday evening. The paneling was removed and it was replaced with this lattice. However, fire has confirmed that this still does not constitute a visible sightline that's appropriate. So some additional notes, post notice of violation. MTA, the business submitted a request for a legislated permit or a permit application. One thing that's worth noting is for these applications, they require a public posting. The Public Works team will only do those postings for open businesses. Let's say a business wasn't open, let's say a business wanted to open April 1st. We could do everything. We could conduct a review and intake of an application, but we could do everything up to posting. Once a business is open, a Public Works inspector facilitates that posting, which is part of the process for obtaining a legislated permit. If a business was closed or was not operating, they would not be able to complete that step within the legislated application. The site would not be able to exist as is under the legislated program due to MTA restrictions. The restaurant on this permit, Owl's Place, has been closed since August. Shared spaces pandemic permits are non-transferable. The site runs awry of pandemic program rules and would not be admissible into our legislated program as a result of that. That's going to be the conclusion of my materials. If there are any questions, I'm able to follow up with them. Happy to entertain them.
Thanks, Gregory. Just a couple questions. So this hearing today is for an appeal to that permit revocation. Is that correct? And who is appealing? Is it the property owner or?
So Public Works has revoked this permit, and the business, Owl's Place, or the permittee, is appealing the revocation of that permit. Just for some context, for other parklets and for old parklets, for our old tables and chairs, we're talking pre-COVID. The Board of Appeals is typically a vehicle that something like this might go to. However, in this instance, our Public Works order indicates that appeals of revocation are entertained solely by the Director of Public Works. One of the reasons why is there's no legislative framework for this permit. It was all done pursuant to Public Works orders, which were pursuant to emergency orders and declarations. As those emergency orders and declarations wind down, and we have a legislative framework in place for annualized ongoing occupancy, we're kind of winding down the pandemic program that this was a part of and trying to transition into a longer term program.
Thank you. And then I guess another question. So would the business be able to reapply for a permit for a parklet that would comply with the current requirements?
Yes, they've already begun that process. But like I've indicated, there would have to be a few major changes to the actual structure itself. So one thing the point of emphasis is that what's out there now would not be able to exist turnkey for this business or any incoming business. And then additionally, if they were to pursue an application or a permit under the legislated program, we have to do that public posting. The business is not open or operating. Those hours are a part of the application. That's how we do posting. So it would preclude our ability to permit them.
Okay. And did you say at the beginning of your presentation that the property owner supports
the property owner does not support a legislated permit for this site?
Supports the revocation.
They support the revocation.
Okay. And then have you received any public comment in advance of this meeting?
I have included emails. I was just getting some like literally 10 minutes before we punched in here. I received 2 emails supporting revocation, and I think about 5 supporting the appeal of revocation or supporting the permit at the site.
Okay, I just want to acknowledge that we have, yeah.
All of
received-
these are saved in the hearing file if you'd like to take a look.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I would like to invite, is the property owner here? If they're here, I'd ask them to speak first. You could raise your hand.
Go ahead and raise your hand if the property owner is here.
And if the property owner is not here, then we could ask for the project sponsor, the Al's Place representative to speak.
Okay, there's Aaron. Aaron, go ahead and speak.
My 3 minutes starts now.
Yes.
I'm going to read this very quickly. Everything I'm reading here is supported by my documents that I submitted. I will note that Greg had 13 minutes to speak. Everything he listed was a mix of tactfully written half truths. Everyone I'm willing to respond to clearly. So to go over the topics that I have listed here, 1, Greg shocked me on 8/22 by suggesting I remove my parklets. His reasoning was based on an aggregate of inaccurate factors. 2, if I had known that DPW would force removal of my parklet for announcing closure, I never would have done so, risking the loss of valuable business asset. I would have augmented service to remain open. 3, I did not know that I would have to remove my parklets because there is nothing remotely implying that anywhere in the 120-page manual or in Administrative Legislative Code 94A. 4, I informed Greg where he was incorrect and explained my position. He acknowledged via email, then went silent. I took this to mean that he recognized his errors and relented. The next time I heard from DPW was 3 months later with a notice of violation out of the blue demanding I remove my parklet within 2 weeks or be fined $180,000 per year. I was given no formal notice to correct or comply with any conditions prior to April 2023, none at all. 6, the formal notice, the formal process in the manual, pages 68 through 70, requires a compliance advisory. And if I have not been responsive and there is hazardous conditions, a compliance and enforcement cover sheet. If I don't resolve the issues per the dates listed on the C&E cover sheet, DPW can escalate to a notice of violation. 7, Shared Spaces has a history of emailing directions to me full of errors and citations of obsolete codes. I can't take action at casual comments from DPW. I will follow formal notices as the manual requires. 8, I have received only 1 formal compliance advisory on 11/2. It listed abandoned parklet as the first compliance issue. The email from DPW containing this compliance advisory states that I must resolve issues by March 31st, 2023. I took that to mean that I had until March 23rd, 2023 to resolve the issue. How else could I take it? On 11/22, I received a notice of violation with abandoned inactive structure as the sole compliance issue. If DPW writes me on 11/2 that I must correct a specific compliance issue by 3/31,
1 minute left.
They cannot slap me with a notice of violation 3 weeks later for not fixing that issue. The notice cites Order 205516, which does not mention abandonment. Parklets are allowed to pause operations provided they maintain and are not abandoned. Manual page 65. There are 4 criteria for removal listed in manual page 65. I do not meet any of those criteria. Order 5122 narrows enforcement to public safety, accessibility, and abandonment. I have not abandoned my parklets. Please allow me to read this portion of the ordinance. On 12/22, shared spaces, first listed criteria for abandonment. I do not meet this criteria. DPW cannot enforce non-operation alone pre-2023. I have continually maintained my parklets. The single photo that DPW is
10
showing
seconds.
is based on a 3-week period where I was sick, my painter was sick, my daughter was sick, and my pregnant wife had COVID, and I wasn't able to paint. That's the only time that it looked like that. The purpose
Your 3 minutes is up, sir.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for giving me time to speak.
Thanks, Aaron. Aaron, could you just state your full name and your affiliation?
My name is Aaron London. I'm the owner of Al's Place. I built that parklet and I personally maintain it. I was there sweeping it out yesterday and painting it. That's what I do.
Okay, could you just quickly describe the status of the business operation at that location?
Yes, my business is trying to figure out what it best does next. I left Al's Place as it was at the end of August because the 7 days a week of work didn't allow me to spend time with my 2-year-old daughter and my upcoming daughter in April. And so I've been working on R&D to either A, create a more simple process that would work with my home life, or B, sell the business to a new owner. If you look at manual page 65, you can see the change of ownership section. Whatever Greg's talking about is about non-transferability is nonsense. This is supported in the manual as well as in admin code 94A. There is a mechanism for change of ownership.
Okay.
So I am
Thank you.
actively working on both while maintaining. I did reopen in December per Greg's advice and remained open minus Christmas break until Greg revoked the permit. So I was reopened until I had
Thank
my
you.
permit revoked.
Okay, and now we can move on to the public comment. If you have public comment you'd like to.
Yeah, you have no questions? No questions?
No additional questions, Aaron. Thank you.
Wow, that's amazing.
Clint, do you see public comment? I see Isabella has her hand raised.
Yes, good morning. This is Isabella and Steve McFessel. We are residents of Bernal Heights Mission District, and we are longtime customers of Al's Place, and not anymore since he's been since not closed, but we would like to speak that I think he has one of the most beautiful and best parklets that are throughout the city. There's some parklets those days, they're being used by owners. There are trashed, ugly, not well maintained. And for a business not being running right now, I think Al's Place has one of the best parklets in use in the city.
And this is Steve McFessel. We're at 193 Presida. It's about 2 to 3 blocks from Al's Place. We just encourage you to support Mr.
Sir,
London and his
sir,
efforts.
so can we let one at a time? So Isabella, you're done with comment, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so go ahead, and the next call I had a Maureen. Maureen, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. I also am a customer at Al's, have been to Al's many times, and I have noticed when the cabanas were built that the cabanas improved the corner. The corner was not really very attractive, and the cabanas are actually a piece of art. And they are, as Isabella said, beautiful. They add to the corner. They attract people to the corner, I would think, in the future. My other point is that they are well maintained. My third point is that COVID has done so much harm. But we have seen in San Francisco some very few examples of how COVID has left us with something better. And that I'm thinking of Golden Gate Park, having the many areas in the city that have allowed pedestrians to have more room, to have corners and parklets and meeting places. And I equate that with the cabanas at the corner of Valencia and 26. They are something that never could have happened, but for the rules that came about to allow for parklets to be built. And I think it is a positive. And I think that in times when hopefully we are seeing the end of COVID, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We want to look and see what positive things actually happened during COVID. This is one of them at Al's Place. Thank you.
We can let Steve speak. Steve, if you're not available, we can move on to the next one. Clint, who do you see? Is it?
I had Greg. Greg is next. Greg, please unmute. Then we have Suzanne, Fernanda, and Brody, and Jacqueline, and Susan, and then two other Victoria, and one caller with the 510 number. So Greg, go ahead. Please unmute, Greg.
Do you mean George?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Yes, I should put my glasses on. Go ahead. Go ahead, George. Go ahead, George. George, go ahead. We're going to start your time. You're still muted, George. Or we're not getting any audio.
And we can come back to George.
Yep, let's go ahead and go to Suzanne. Suzanne, go ahead.
Great. My name is Suzanne Hansen. I live in the Mission. I live at 21st in Valencia, so I see a lot of these pop-ups and these kind of parklets that have been created. I want to start by commending the city on the program that they created. It's really incredible, and I do hope that they become a permanent element of our city. They've made it more walkable, especially at this end of Valencia. It's truly a benefit to the community. With regards to Al's Place, I will say that Al's Place is one of the better built and better designed parklets that I've seen. I live right by Armando's, I live right by Boogaloo's, and I walk by Al's Place probably twice a week. I'll say that it is incredibly clean. Actually, in early January, I had to stop by because it was so clean. I thought maybe they were opening up again, or maybe a pop-up was coming. I was really excited, but it's not, to use your words, Greg, it's not become a blight. It has not spoiled. It is not a cancer. It's incredibly clean. And even when I have seen spray paint, it's always painted over by the next time I pass. It is well maintained. I can draw the comparison to other restaurants that are currently open that are not nearly as clean and well maintained as Al's Place is. And I just hope the energy, especially to rebuilding and building, popular community destinations at this end of Valencia, will continue to be supported by the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Next we have Greg. We're going to bring George back. Sorry, George. Go ahead, George.
I could do.
Okay, he doesn't. George is having some technical difficulties. We're going to go to Fernanda. Go ahead, Fernanda.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Fernanda.
Awesome. Well, I just wanted to follow up. First of all, what Maureen said and Suzanne was beautifully said, and want to really echo that sentiment. I think for us as a family with a young child during COVID, parklets were really instrumental in our ability to participate in the world. To date, with our 2-year-old, we really are only able to dine out at parklets due to COVID concerns, and we hugely appreciate this as a benefit of our city. We live nearby Al's Place. We're frequented them multiple times as new parents with our child sitting in the parklets. I think one thing is you often feel unsafe in a parklet with cars kind of passing by, etc. The parklets at Al's Place are phenomenally well constructed, and I can imagine it was no fee to get them up in the first place, but it's also not something that I can imagine can take down and put back up easily. And really, as my husband has a small business as well and can really empathize with a business owner, particularly in the service industry, not only trying to survive and stay afloat within San Francisco, but really add to the fabric of the community and go kind of above and beyond to create things that are additive to the community. Again, to echo, I think the corner actually significantly improved with the arrival of the parklets from Al's Place, with the foot traffic, et cetera. That's not a corner of the city that had a lot going on prior to Al's Place arrival. And can deeply really empathize with the business owner of the difficult time that they must be going through as a business. And throughout the pivot, it feels, who said throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but like a undue amount of stress.
1
to
minute.
tear down a structure in a moment where they're trying to pivot. So really rooting for Al's Place and hope that the city can be lenient with someone who clearly has good intentions and is trying to beautify the city and has not, there are so many other problems that the city has. Why penalize someone who's trying to add and beautify and improve everything for the residents? So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Fernanda. Next, we have Brody.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Brody. I studied city and regional planning at UC Berkeley, and I was also an employee at Al's Place. I'll start by saying this parklet is not compliant with the fire and safety emergency access regulations set forth in your 2022 manual. When I was there, the business was using the emergency access gaps as a secure bike storage during service, under lock and key, making the pathway inaccessible. Today, the gates are obstructing emergency access 24/7 and when the business is not operating. This is a direct violation of your code P19. Lastly, I encourage this body to look at the amount of violations and complaints filed with the SF Entertainment Commission. Overall, this is a direct and unnecessary privatization of public space. It is an eyesore and it stands as a monument as another failed business. I implored the Department of Public Works to revoke this permit and have the parklet removed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jacqueline. Go ahead, Jacqueline.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Keywood, and I first want to say that I agree with Maureen, Suzanne, and Fernanda about definitely the cleanliness of Al's Place and the parklet specifically under consideration here. I'm hurting because of the amount of time and energy so many people put into creating these spaces. I acknowledge the city and the business owners for working so hard, especially during COVID, to create communities of connection where people can come and gather. I am not a resident in San Francisco, but I am a customer since Al's Place first opened. And it's always been high on the list of myself and many people I know as a destination in the city from out of the area. I am also encouraged by the fact that there are business owners that are so willing, as Aaron has been, to cooperate and comply with the amount of regulation that is required for people in business to open a business as well as create these parklets. I cannot imagine what it's like to try and stay on top of all this as well as run a business and have any other kind of life. It seems to me that the good intentions and the amount of work that's been done, and it's documented on many fronts, I know that for sure, that has been documented, and support Aaron's position in favor of being able to appeal this should be acknowledged as well. And I am hoping that the city really realizes that there are many ways to look at this. There are many ways and avenues at which to look at this. Something has to be of the hierarchy of it. And I'm hoping that the hierarchy is the intention of the city and of this particular business owner to create a compromise of some kind that will allow him to keep the parklet. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Hey, what time are you leaving? Sorry.
Thank you. It's Bob, can you go ahead and speak?
Thank you. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Bob. We'll start the clock.
I believe that the best solution, given the comments which we've heard both from the city representative and from Aaron London and supporters of his business, is for the restaurant and the city to collaborate to maintain the parklets with whatever modifications are prudent to meet safety codes. This will allow visitors and residents to continue to enjoy outdoor dining opportunities and is preferable to forcing the current owner to suffer the hardship of removal and also burdens a future owner from having to create parklets from scratch. These parklets are part of the reason that my wife and I come to San Francisco for fine dining. We enjoy dining outdoors, and this will continue to be a welcome addition to our experience, even after, God willing, COVID is no longer the primary issue. So how can you guys work together, collaborate to work towards modifications, maintain the parklets so that they'll be available for future diners? Thanks very much.
Thank you. And George, go ahead. George is fixed his microphone. George, we still can't hear
If
you.
you're unable to speak, you're welcome to submit your public comment by email to Gregory and myself.
Okay, so then we'll go on next to Susan Upchurch. Go
Hello.
ahead, Susan.
Yes, good morning. I have read Mr. London's appeal this morning, and I just want to, I'm in agreement with the previous speakers that are in support, with the exception of Brody. I just want to add that in addition to adding vibrancy and being an asset to the neighborhood, these parklets have generated significant income and sales tax for the city of San Francisco. It expanded the business's ability to serve the public and generated significant revenue. So I don't think that should be looked at lightly. I hope that the hearing officer will decide in the favor of Mr. London and allow him to continue to find a way to make this work, including addressing the safety issues that were mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Victoria. Go ahead, Victoria.
Thank you. I have a little statement. I've lived in and owned in the Mission for a number of years. I've been going past this corner for a long time, and this is going to date me. It's since I've lived in the old Sears loft building on Mission and then Army Street. So that tells you it's been about 25 years. It was a dead corner and not a lot was happening prior to Al's place. You know, it looks out at the long brick wall of the Salvation Army on the corner, their offices and storage facility across the way. And of course, there's the Dover Club. So when I heard that Aaron was planning to do a restaurant there, my first thought was, oh no, don't do it. Of all locations, not this one. So many restaurants have opened and died, including ones by the landlord himself. However, he proved us all wrong and not only created a great restaurant, but a restaurant that received accolades, the best new restaurant in the United States. And maybe more importantly for the neighborhood, he created what was noted as one of the most accessibly priced Michelin-starred restaurants in the nation, which meant that more people from the area might have an opportunity to experience great cuisine. Obviously, this business suffered through COVID. It was heartbreaking to see. However, he tried to make the most of it. At the beginning of COVID, he was one of the first to hire and support an artist by having a really nice mural painted on his restaurant. It was a beautiful, bright light in the area, seeing the colors and hope and care that mural represented. The parklet is well designed, as others have noted. It's attractive and enliven the corner. As for claims of graffiti, unfortunately, as we all know in San Francisco, not a single parklet in SF has gone unscathed. So yeah, you can catch them. You can at some point, you're going to catch one of these if you want to with graffiti on them. But overall, what we've seen is good. Seeing people out, as other people have noted, enjoying each other's company, making this previously dim corner feel safer and more secure and happier is really what we've seen. If, you know, and unfortunately, I know it's been an exercise in building something as it's flying, but in terms of the parklets, but it feels like this is an example of San Francisco making things harder than easier and not applying good sense. And it's a bit anti-small business to take away an essential tool for success in this particular location in a tough market that is not getting any better in the foreseeable future. You know, Owl's Place is really a beacon for this corner of the Mission. It does not make sense to take away the ability of this business to survive and continue to be a vibrant addition in the neighborhood.
1 minute.
The neighborhood is better for having a well-run and successful business on that corner, as others have noted. And I ask that the hearing officer allow Aaron to address any issues, but do not take away this valuable asset, both from a survival standpoint of this business and from the happiness of this neighborhood. As Aaron has indicated, he is determined to continue with his business, and we should allow him to have this tool for success. Thank you.
Clint, you're muted.
Okay, the next we have Steve McKessel. Go ahead, Steve.
Hi, I tried to speak earlier about on my phone, but I don't think it works. So hopefully you can hear me.
No, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Great. I'm a neighbor. I live about 2.5 blocks away from Owl's Place. We were regular customers at Owl's Place. This, as everyone has said, this has been just a jewel of the neighborhood. And I know it's going to continue to be that. Mr. London is somebody that we want to keep as a neighbor. He's been a fantastic neighbor. The parklet has enhanced that corner. That was a very difficult corner before. The corner across the street is a challenging corner. And I would just encourage you to keep this kind of positive energy, good, solid businesses, and give him all the tools he needs to make his next generation a success. We walk by there regularly. It looks, as a rule, looks great. There's always going to be some graffiti. That's just a challenge. We all face a challenge in the city, but we want to keep him here. We want to keep him successful. So we encourage you to find a way to keep that parklet. We've had a lot of businesses in the neighborhood close. We live very close to the Walgreens that closed. It's just sad to see that. And we know he's committed to making this work in a positive way for the community. So we'd like to register our support on behalf of Mr. London's request to keep the parklet. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. The next person is Kevin. Go ahead, Kevin.
Hi, I joined late, so I'm not sure if anybody spoke from the block that I live on. I live on the block with Owl's Place, and I personally didn't have a lot of problems with the business before COVID. I did find them a bit noisy. I had neighbors who lived above me who moved out because of the noise, and we had complained repeatedly about this, but nothing was done about it. And again, they moved out. But the issue is about the parklet. I find it a huge problem. The business has been closed for many months, and the graffiti stays present for weeks on end and is not painted over. And I think if he was intending to open the business again, he should be here on a regular basis, painting over it, and so that it's not such an eyesore. Sorry, excuse me. The other issue is the people living around it. There's people across the street. The lighting is poor around the parklet. There's no lighting in the parklet itself, so I've seen them storing objects within it, but also a large amount of garbage at the side of it that's not attended to regularly. I don't understand why the parklet is still there. The business is closed. It's been closed for many months. If it was your intention and if it was your care about the neighborhood, you should be there regularly attending to it. I support the parklet being removed, and I think I speak for everybody in my building and probably everybody on the block. If there's anybody on the call from the block, I know we got notice about this very late, I'd appreciate if you could raise your hand and give us some support on this. Again, I really hope that it's removed.
Thank you. Hearing Officer Sway, we do not have anyone else with their hand up, but if we want to give another last call for someone, we have Juan has his hand up. Go ahead, Juan.
Hello?
Hello, you can hear you, Juan.
Okay. well, beyond the plain violations of code for emergency services and the fact that it's extremely difficult to see around the parklet as a driver, which I believe creates an unsafe environment, I believe Aaron London deserves no public sympathy for creating a boon in the city. As a member of the food service industry, not only did he practice an abusive management style during the operation of his restaurant, but he laid off his entire staff with a 10-day notice, just moments before timing an article in the SF Chronicle in order to increase business in what now seems to be a manufactured demand under the illusion that the restaurant would never open again. Without a clear and concise plan to open once again, there is no reason for this parklet to continue to stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan. Do we have anyone else with their hand up? Okay.
Boom, finish strong. Oh, God.
Okay, well, if there's no more public comment, we can close public comment for this item. I want to thank everyone for attending this meeting and taking time to express your opinions and feelings about this project. I do want to invite Aaron London. I did put my email in the chat. If you are able to submit your, sounds like you were reading your comments with your line by line issues with kind of the process and how things unfolded as part of your public comment. I'd like to invite you to submit that to me and both me and Gregory. His email, I'm sure you may have, and mine is in the chat. And no decisions are going to be made at the hearing today. We'll take all this into consideration, and then our director will make the final decision. Okay, I'm just entering my. Okay, and Clint, I think this is the only item. Is that? I just want to confirm this is the only item on today's agenda.
This is the only item on today's agenda, and which is hearing order 2057578.
Okay. And Aaron, just answer your question. If you could get the comments this week, that would be helpful.
Okay, since we have no more comment, go ahead, John, and we'll close the hearing and gavel down.
Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks, Public Works staff.